Well, of course, if it's a Ravens-Steelers week, that means we get to catch up with our next guest. Of course, he remains an analyst as part of Steelers Game Day broadcast doing the post game. And, he's a former Steelers quarterback and a guy that won a football game in Baltimore that we try to ignore still all these years later. But more importantly than that, he's a friend, and he is a very good man who has done incredible work out there in Pittsburgh. He's going to tell us more about that as well. He is Charlie Batch, and he is back with us this morning here on GCR. Charlie, it's Glenn, it's Stan. It's so good to see you. Happy holidays to you, and thank you for taking the time for us.
And happy birthday to you, Charlie.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's always exciting, so I appreciate you having me on, fellas.
This one feels a little bit different than a lot of Ravens-Steelers games that we've talked to you about over the years, right? Like, this is starting to feel more like maybe it's not actually an elimination game, but it starts to feel like a bit of an elimination game. We start to ask maybe some big picture questions about these organizations. Does all of that get thrown out? Does all the noise get thrown out? Is this just Ravens-Steelers and it could still prove to be a classic? Or what do you make of the fact that these two teams are just two teams that aren't playing very good football right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it feels different, and it feels different because typically you have these teams that are maybe 10-2 at this point, 9-3, not 6-6, and even though both teams are in that position, it comes down to these two teams that ultimately are going to be a division winner. And schedule makers, you have to apply them at least because the way they prepare and put Baltimore and Steelers in December, and in this case January 4th. That game ultimately, I feel, will ultimately determine kind of what this division looks like. So even though this game is important, but again, it's just trying to create that separation, whether either you're a game and a half behind or you're a game in front or a half game in front. So again, I love the rivalry, and again, this is what we are.
Charlie, I've had this thought that I've shared this week where like the Steelers are 6-6, the Ravens are 6-6, but to me the Ravens are a disappointing 6-6. I'll be honest, the Steelers are exactly where I thought they were going to be before the season. You tell me if I'm wrong or I'm being cruel. Like I just didn't look at this roster and find it to be overwhelming. I feel like this is kind of what they have. Are you disappointed? I'm sure as someone who cares about the Steelers you are, but are you disappointed based on realistic expectations by where they are at 6-6?
Well, I think, when you look at where
they are right now, I think the disappointing piece is probably the Steelers because they started 4-1 and then now they ended up at 6-6. And when they had an opportunity to essentially kind of bury the Ravens, probably about a month or so ago when they played the Bengals on Thursday night and they had a chance to win that game and obviously fell short. Now it allowed the Ravens to get back into this. And I know obviously we're talking different areas when you're talking about from your Baltimore perspective, but Pittsburgh perspective. But when they lost that game, essentially up here in Pittsburgh, people are like, wow, you essentially let Baltimore back into the division at this point. So again, I understand what that looks like, but however you started, it's a matter of you just want an opportunity to put yourself in position in December. Baltimore did that, and unfortunately, the Steelers allowed Baltimore to be back in this situation.
Charlie, from the perspective you have now as an ex-player out of the game for a while, coaching. Mike Tomlin's been there since 2007. John Harbaugh in Baltimore since 2008. Is it possible that both their messages have gotten a little stale, or is it just simply talent isn't there?
Well, I think it's a little bit of talent. Let me start by saying, do I think both of them will be back in the 2026 year? Yes, that's my personal opinion. But I think when you look at this particular perspective, the rivalry was created the rivalry because both teams were very similar. The names were the same, and you knew what you were getting. And now you're starting to see the evolution of new players that are evolving in here. Unfortunately, when they stack their rosters, both teams, they stack them in comparison to what each other is doing. So the rosters are very similar. When you look at just the Steelers' perspective, they are, when it comes to the talent on the roster, they believe that they have the talent. Unfortunately, they're not getting it done for whatever reason that allowed them to get in this particular position. And at the beginning of the season, each organization expectations are to hoist that Lombardi trophy. So until they say it's a transition period, I expect them to win or at least compete for the Super Bowl championship. And right now, they're not playing as well as they would like to, but again, they're in position to hopefully make the playoffs in this particular point.
Former Steelers quarterback, game day analyst Charlie Batch is with us here on GCR. Charlie, the Aaron Rodgers experience in Pittsburgh, is it on him? Is it on a lack of playmakers around him? What do you make of how kind of mid it has looked for much of the season with Aaron Rodgers running this offense?
Yeah, I mean, early in the year, he was playing pretty good football, and I still see him doing that, even though the numbers aren't matching up to what he's bringing to the equation. But again, offensively, they knew they were young. They knew they needed that veteran presence to come in here and stabilize that, and they were looking for these young players to now take that next step in whatever part of their career that they're at, and that hasn't happened. Throughout the season continuously, and that's why you're seeing the numbers essentially at the bottom of the offensive ranks, because these guys aren't doing it. They had stability in the offensive line. It looked like that was getting together. Broderick Jones goes out with an injury, and now you're looking to now start a new guy up front. So these are things that the changes are there. They truly believe that that's the case, but for whatever reason, Arthur Smith can't get these guys in the game plan, and it's head scratching, because when you look at the Steelers offense, it's not like you can look at one specific area and say they do this well. It's just the fact they don't do it well consistently, and that's the issue throughout the season.
Speaking of things they don't do well, is there any reason why the Baltimore Ravens shouldn't hand the ball to Derrick Henry, 60 times on Sunday after watching what the Buffalo Bills did a week ago?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, and for us, it goes back further, because in that playoff game, you essentially rushed for 299 yards, and that was that's what you were left with to close out the 2024 season. You go out, you draft Derek Harmon in the first round. He battled some injuries early, was consistent, and then now he's out again. So you don't have the piece that you thought that was going to identify to help stop the run, and yet Buffalo rushes in the manner that they did, which is unheard of in Pittsburgh as it relates to run defense. But here they are. So to your
of Derrick Henry, why wouldn't you do that? Because of that reason. So I think ultimately we're going to see that. We don't know how healthy Lamar Jackson is. That's going to be an issue. And if he's not, then that means they're going to load up the box and force Lamar to now beat you with his arm, which we know he can. But the caveat to him is obviously his mobility. And if he doesn't have that, what did that offense look like for the Ravens?
Charlie, you made your point that you think Mike Tomlin will be back next year, but have you ever seen the fan base in Pittsburgh this sort of disillusioned? I understand there were an awful lot of Buffalo fans in the stands. I understand earlier in the year there were a lot of Green Bay fans. In the past, the out-of-towners couldn't have gotten those tickets, could they?
No, not at all. And it was amazing to watch it, because that's the first time that I truly felt that an opposing team has taken over the Acrisure Stadium, and it was unheard of. I mean, they were not happy with the way both units were working. There were a lot of boos that were happening. That was the first time that you heard "Fire Mike Tomlin" chants, and since he's been here. And the one thing up here that really surprised everybody was the fact that they booed Renegade, which has been a staple of trying to now get this defense and get them going, pumping them up, getting them excited. And they typically all good things happen when Renegade is played. Well, because they were down, they blacked out the screen, and the fans started booing. And that was just like, wow, times have changed, because the fans are not encouraged about the product that are being placed out there on that field. They need to do something about it. So this may be a good week that they actually get away from the home stadium and take their business on the road.
Man, that is wild. Charlie Badge with us here on GCR. Charlie, I guess the question would be, so then why to you do you think that Mike Tomlin is safe?
The contract.
Okay. They just don't want to. They just don't want to pay someone to not coach.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around him. He's still a great communicator. He still can get the message across. Unfortunately, those guys aren't doing it, and that obviously is a talent issue. It could be a scheme issue. Only they know that internally, but I just don't think that he's going to be moved anytime soon, because if you've been around the Rooney family, what they don't do is pay coaches to sit home. So
Charlie,
because of that reason, yeah, I think he's going to be back.
Charlie, could it be a slightly different scenario where a team like the Giants come in and maybe offer a draft pick for him and try and acquire him? Do you think he's happy there right now? I'm sure he's not happy being 6-6.
Right. He's extremely he's happy here. There's no question about it. I mean, his whole family has been here for 19 years. So yes, him and the Rooney family, they have a really good relationship. So I don't anticipate that particular piece. Could someone offer a first round pick for him? Yeah, sure. That's obviously on the table. But again, they would have to get approval and negotiations have to happen for a coach to get traded. What I ultimately think is going to happen is when you look at these units, they continue to falter in the manner that they do. That means now, as the head coach, you have two people to essentially that you could point blame to. One is the position coach, two is the coordinator. Can I see moves being made in that particular manner? Yes, I can 100% see that, because what basis do you have to stand on to say I can keep both my offensive and defensive coordinators if they finish at the bottom of the league in rankings?
You brought up Lamar a minute ago. I did want to get your thoughts on what you're seeing, because it feels like we're sort of sitting here in Baltimore and saying the Ravens maybe there's a world where we wake up on Sunday, Lamar Jackson looks like Lamar Jackson again, and if he does, the Ravens are as dangerous as any team in the NFL, because that's what Lamar Jackson can bring. But we have not seen that guy since before he went out with the hamstring injury earlier this season. Do you see someone that you say, there's just no world? Like, can Lamar Jackson still be Lamar Jackson before this season is over?
I think he can, but again, we don't know the injuries that he is truly battling. We know about the hamstring injury, but is there something else that's going on?
Well, they've listed him with about 16 different injuries since then.
Thank you. So that's the part. You don't know what truly it is. So again, I understand why it may show up on the injury report, because you don't want somebody just focusing in on that specific injury. But just watching him from afar, what happens is you're like, wait a minute, I've seen him get out of that play before. I've seen him extend plays to the manner that he's used to extending them. But when he's not doing that, that lets me know he's probably about 80%. But again, at 80% of Lamar Jackson is better than maybe what they currently have on the roster. So that's ultimately a coach quarterback decision, but he wants to be out there. He wants to be out there with his guys. But I just think that there is something else going on. But we'll see on Sunday, because based off the way that the Steelers are, especially with their edge rushers, we're going to see whether he can now get out of that or he attempts to stay in the pocket. That's going to be something we see fairly early in this game.
Charlie, I know we're focused on this Sunday's game, but as a longtime observer of the Steelers, can they ever be back to what they were without addressing quarterback long term? And how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, you always want to have a stability at the quarterback position. And obviously, we've been spoiled up here with Ben Roethlisberger for all of the years, and I backed him up 9 of my 11 seasons. So I understand.
You don't have to remind us. We remember, Charlie. We remember.
So I've been there. So again, ultimately, you want to make sure you hit on the quarterback, and they missed with Kenny Pickett in 2022. Obviously, when you miss on a first rounder, that sets you back a few years.
Yep.
And now you see the revolving door that's happening right there at quarterback position. Thought they had a piece last year with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Obviously, that didn't materialize, and here you are with Aaron Rodgers. And I think ultimately, I don't know what Aaron is thinking, as it relates to playing next season. But the issue that the Steelers have right now is they do have a young quarterback at Will Howard. They were excited about him coming out of Ohio State. The challenge is he was hurt in training camp with a broken wrist to his broken right wrist. So when you have something that's broken, it's hard for you to go out there and actually get the physical reps. So they can't even evaluate Will Howard up until this point, because he just started practicing a couple weeks ago. So it's going to be critical for the organization to try to get him meaningful reps with the ones. But again, it's hard to do that during the season when you're running the scout team. And now they have to evaluate Will, and then ultimately figure out what the next draft class better than what you currently have on the roster. Right now, as I sit here, I don't know if that is the case, because quarterback play in college football right now is down a little bit more prior at this point of the season than it was coming into the season. So again, all of those things are being talked about within the Steelers organization. So depending on how this season unfolds, if for whatever reason it gets away from them and they're not in it in week 17 and 18, guess what? We may see Will Howard getting some reps to see if he can get game action so they can get an evaluation piece on him.
You mean potentially a backup quarterback against the Ravens? What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Hey, because I wanted you to tell us about Best of the Batch, but before I do that, we've done this so many times over the years. You accomplished a lot of things in your career. I mean, like you were a multiple Super Bowl winner. You were a starter in Detroit and on good teams. Where does that day in Baltimore, on like everything you did in your career? Like, we think of it a lot when we think of you because, trust me, that week we were saying in Baltimore, they're not going to lose to Charlie Batch. That's not going to happen.
I said that they were going to lose.
Oh, you predicted it, Stan? But where on all the things that you did that day and being put in that spotlight, where is that on your like personal hit list?
Yeah, it's really high on there. Obviously, the 2 Super Bowls are 1 and 2, but a lot of that, Ben is credited for that because he started those games. So yes, I was part of the team. It felt great to be a contributor and those type of things. But ultimately, in a game that you knew you needed, in one of the final games of my career as a starter, it was as a starter my last game. But going into Baltimore, it was tough because not many people outside of Steelers Nation even thought that we can compete with the Ravens on that day as they were entering and had a chance to clinch the division on that particular game. But again, it's a rivalry game. And the one thing as a backup quarterback that you don't want said about you is the fact that if you lose the game, it's because the starter didn't play and the backup didn't contribute. And I always prided myself on that to make sure I was not going to be the reason why we lost the game because Ben's not in there. So you take pride in that manner. And again, we still needed to win that game for our slim playoff hopes to happen. And we won the game, but we lost a couple after that. We did not get into the playoffs. So it's a long way of saying 13 years later, people still bring that memory up. If it happened against a different team, I don't think people will talk about it in the light that it happened. But because it was Steelers Ravens, 90% of the country was watching that game. And I had to go down there on a 2-minute drill and keep our defense off the field and score the winning field goal. That was one that really I prided myself on. And I knew that potentially was going to be the last game for me. And that's why you saw the emotions happen with the hug between myself and Ben Roethlisberger at the end of that game, because I knew that there was a chance that was going to be it. And lo and behold, it was.
Hey, Charlie, I know Glenn wants to dig into your charitable work, but I have to ask you, you played 4 seasons in Detroit. How gratifying is it to watch the turnaround that Dan Campbell has brought to Detroit?
Yeah, it's exciting to watch for sure. And of course, I wanted to be part of that piece. I did not expect my career to kind of go that direction. But again, I was part of the problem when you go up there and not being able to put consistent seasons together. They made changes. I understand from an organizational perspective on what they needed to do. And then here you are fast forwarding all of these years later. And then, you see the way that organization went. But ultimately, to see him now on the upswing, Dan Campbell is doing one heck of a job. It makes you proud as a former alumni of that organization to say, man, I'm rooting for you, except when you play the Steelers. So when you look at it, obviously that will come to a head at the end of this month, because Pittsburgh goes to Detroit. And it's been almost 27 years since the Lions have beat the Steelers. And the last time the Lions beat the Steelers, there was some dude by the name of Charlie Batch who was the starting quarterback of that team. So you better believe I'm going to be put on blast when I do these interviews with Detroit in a couple weeks, asking me my feelings as it relates to what that potential game is going to be.
Charlie, as far as we've talked to maybe 1 million athletes about their charity endeavors over the years, but I don't know that we've ever talked to anyone who is as committed and cares as deeply as you do. Can you remind everybody about what it is that you've been doing with the Best of the Batch Foundation and how it's I remember what you told me last year and how it's grown. It's insane to me how this has grown over the years and the work that you're doing.
No, I appreciate it. And Best of the Batch Foundation, we're an educational foundation, and we serve over 4,000 kids annually in 9 counties throughout southwestern PA. And we're an educational foundation, and we focus on our STEAM programs and our out of school time, which is very critical for kids as they are now leaving school before parents get home. So we make sure that we're focusing on those. And when you see that happening throughout the course of the year, people get excited, and we just expanded. We went from 5,300 square feet to 33,000 square feet, and we just did a ribbon cutting April of 2024. So we always, out of that, 1,100 students actually come through our doors throughout the course of a calendar year. So we're super excited about that. And as you see it, you just saw the before picture and now what it looks like after,
It's amazing.
as far as where we're at. And during this time of year, this time of year during the holiday time, we adopt 400 families throughout the holiday time, and it's over 1,800 kids that we'll be able to impact. So what we do is collect unwrapped toys. Then we need help wrapping them. So it takes over 1,500 people to help wrap the gifts. And then we deliver the week of Christmas. So what we do, we work with school districts because they know the family dynamics better than we do. They provide the list of the families, and then from there, the ages and the name of the kids. And then from there, each child gets a minimum of 10 toys, and then the household gets a laundry basket full of food, and then they get a dish set, pot set, silverware set, Swiffer set, toolkit to now make that whole family experience happen. And when you are now showing up and delivering these presents to the families, it becomes emotional because without this, they may not have a Christmas. So that's why it's important for us to continue to do the work that we are doing, because we don't do this by ourselves. My wife, Latasha, and I, we don't do this by ourselves. It takes a village to be able to make this happen. With all the support that we receive, we are truly humbled, and we are grateful for all the support that people have believed in us all of these years later. So if anybody wants to, and we love to collaborate with people. So if anybody wants to learn more about what we're doing, they can go to batchfoundation.org, see all of the programs that we do throughout the course of the year. And obviously, if we can collaborate, we love to do so. But also, if you want to help donate toys, there are options that you have. If you're within Pittsburgh area, we have drop-off locations around the city. But also, we have click and ship options that we have on our website that will ship directly towards us if you select us to be able to choose during this holiday time. And we are in dire need of toys 10 and above, because those toys are the ones that we are shortfall right now as we are wrapping. So if anybody interested, please, we are looking from 10 to 18 if that's something that as you browse our website that you're hopefully be able to bless some families as well. So we appreciate you all.
Charlie, that's an amazing, amazing endeavor. I'm wondering, is the business community, are they supportive of your efforts there in Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just case in point, when I just talked about, we call it Batch of Toys. Typically, it's a playoff of our name. But Batch of Toys, that program, over 1,500 people that help put that together, over 30 companies that are a part of it because they're coming over, whether that's support role financially, whether that's coming over to actually volunteer their time to wrap gifts. We are truly grateful of that. So yes, the community is been huge supporters of that, and obviously it starts with the Rooney family up here in Pittsburgh. Art Rooney, Greta Rooney, they are true believers in what we are doing, and everybody in between. We don't shortfall anybody, regardless if I don't care if you can donate 16 cents or maybe $160 out of your check. But when you do that, because there are so many organizations that you can choose from, but when you select us and you choose to be a part of it, we are grateful for that, because I have many different options that people can choose, but you choose to spend your time with us, and that's what we're truly appreciative of.
Again, batchfoundation.org. Charlie, your family, you are a light, and we are so appreciative of that. We always appreciate you taking the time for us. Look forward to catching up again as we get to Week 18. Thank you so much for doing this, and happy holidays to you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Happy holidays, fellas.
Happy birthday again, Charlie.
Thank you.